Hello, cats and kittens, whatever Jose Yoroshku, and welcome back to the Manga Corner with a belated Manga Monday. Giving my impressions on One Piece Chapter 10, 23, Spitting Image. It's from the official translation. This was still warming up to the top of the undercards, which is the top fights before Luffy gets to Kaido. So we had a bunch of undercards, which I'm amazed that Oda got through them all. And some of them we got through maybe a little quicker than I wanted, but such is life. There was a lot of fights to have to cover, and I'm not certain that all of those fights are done or that there may be more fights before Luffy 1v1s with Kaido. But we still have Yamato Kaido, but anyway. So Spitting Image, and that title relates more to Zoro than anything else. So there's that. So we'll go through this quick because we got another chapter coming up, and I'm gonna have to cut another video fairly quick since this is a belated Manga Monday. We jump straight into the aftermath of the double attack from that splash page where Zoro and Sanji go in on King and Queen. And there, it's interesting. The fanboys are, out there shouting, go Zoro, go Zoro Joro and Sangoro, they ain't figured out who they are yet, whatever. So you have that, and the at the bottom of that page, you have King and Queen laying on their back. And I get this flashback of Zoro and Sanji laying on their back right before they in the Davy back fights, right before they go in on clean up their opponents. They're laying there, little blood coming out of their mouths, and they're like, all right, let's cooperate and do this. That's kind of what that little panel right there reminds me of, because King has a look on his face. You can only see his eyes, of course, but it kind of reminds me of the look in Zoro's eyes when he agrees to put their differences aside, get in there with Sanjay and clean up their opponents in that Davy back fight. That's just of interest to me. So there's that. The next thing of interest is when we see Marco flashing back to Whitebeard telling him about these kings, or these, gods that lived on top the red line. Let me see. Long before they were atop the red line, before the Celestial Dragons put their camp up there on Murray's Raw. So gods, of course, is a relative term in One Piece, so there was a race of people that were powerful, we'll say that. Exactly what they were. Apparently they're related to King, which are the Lunari, I believe their name is. Lunari, yeah, we'll get to that. So there's a race of people. This is going to become clear as we get into the Zoro King fight. But it's hyping up King because apparently he comes from a race of people which are very powerful. And then we had the recent release of the King's Vivid card, which confirms that he is obviously the second strongest person in the Beast Pirates to Kaido. And I heard some other stuff about him being like, that he I think he like willingly submitted to Kaido as his boss without a fight because he was so impressed with his power, and all kind of this is some hype out on King. I wish we could have got more. We got actually more hype coming into Wano on Jack than anybody else, and I'm going back to saying Jack the Jobber because he's about to take another L that we're gonna get to. Jack is Jack. Most of his stuff, most of his impressive feats were off screen. On screen, we seen him getting not mauled, but you know, he we get back to Jack anyway. So Marco makes these statements, or repeats what he had heard from Whitebeard, and then he's ultimately pulled off of the battlefield by Izzo. I think Izzo pulls him off because he's apparently daydreaming. He's not really. He's saying that Izzo has his back, and he knows that Izzo was going to save him from the attack from these scrubs. And Izzo does save him, and they take off, or at least he gets Marco out of the way. Then we get back into the fight, and Queen is hyping up, you know, the All Stars. You know, we're this, we're that, the Calamities. You know, y'all are nothing compared to us. And this is cool to me because they need to get hyped up. These are the fights that are really, really going to push Sanji and Zoro up the charts. You know what I'm saying? You're only as good as your opponents. And these are the most powerful opponents that either of them have faced up until this point. We even get a cool shot of both of them take, you know, I ain't gonna say cheap shots, or they try to take shots at Sanji and Zoro while they're off guard. King goes in on Sanji with a sword strike. Zoro blocks it. That's not a problem for him. And then Queen goes in with this bridle grabber, or this claw that's coming off of his ponytail to get Zoro. And Zoro seems to have noticed it. I don't know if that's observation, but they got that little a special effect on, you know, kind of looks like he just noticed it because it's obvious and it's coming at him. But while he's blocking King's attack, he kind of like, I think he just notices it in whatever way. But Sanji comes and blocks it, and you know they pay each other back for the good deed, you could say. But before that, the little funny bit is, well, funny and also interesting, which is raising some debate as to what the raid suits unlock Sanji's genetic potential. That's a question that's coming up now because he makes a comment that from the second time he put on the raid suit, his body feels odd. And not bad, but just different. Now, do the raid suits, I can't say do they unlock the genetic potential of the kids, because the kids, his other siblings, are fine. They were not failures, as Queen says. Queen sees Sanji as a genetic failure of some sort because he knows what Judge had in mind when he tampered with these kids. But if the raid suits either augment or unlock genetic potential, Judge that almost goes back to why did Judge tell, I forget, was it Yanji or it wasn't Ichi, whoever it was that gave him the raid suit, the Judge tell them to give him the raid suit because he knew that it was going to unlock his genetic potential, and if he did that, did he do that on purpose as a favor or for what? You know, if the raid suits in fact unlock some kind of genetic potential in Sanji, Judge would have had that in mind when it was given to him. And knowing that Sanji didn't want any part of him or the family, why would he have done that? You know, or however that works. I don't know. That we know that there are genetic, what do you call it? Biometric. They're biometrically designed so that they can only be activated by whoever the suit is for. And that suit, Stealth Black, is specifically for Sanji, so it could only do something to him. So again, was that by design? Is this something that Judge is working on? Did he do that because as a favor because Sanji saved their family back in Whole Cake Island? And as quickly as those events went down, I don't see that being the case because he would have had to had pre-knowledge that they were going to be saved by Sanji so that he could do him that favor. It's all kind of weird in terms of the why. If the raid suits are unlocking his genetic potential, why? You know what I'm saying? Taking it back to Judge. Why would he do that? Because Sanji's not coming back to their family. He knows that. The only reason he could do, there had to be some kind of altruistic design. And as quickly as those events went down, I don't see that being the case. So we're going to see how that plays off. But of course, Zoro's only concern is hold up your end of the fight. That's it, you know. And I also find it interesting that Zoro noticed this. So he must have noticed something in his movements because Sanji didn't say anything. Zoro just said, "What's up with you?" You know. So he noticed either his movements were off. It must have been his movements because nobody said anything. So that just shows that they locked in. They know each other very well, apparently. So it's just cool. It's the crew. Anyway, enough of that. So we get into the battle, and Queen, again, is taunting Sanji, saying, that he must be one of Judge's cyborgs or one of his robots or whatever. Otherwise, why would humans burst into flames? That's not something that usually happens, admittedly. And Sanji's point is, it's the, what he say? He says, the heat of my passion surpasses the temperature of a flame, which is cool, I mean, Otis said that like in the OBS or whatever, but yeah. And he goes in on Queen with this cartwheel kick, bursting into flame, to the point where Queen, I think, has to hockey up to block it. Again, I want to see Sanji get off, and I want to see what he adds to his arsenal, because he's fighting somebody with an array of attacks, defensive and offensive. And Sanji is primarily a martial artist. He doesn't have weapons to throw at this, so his martial arts has to be on point. We know he can launch his flames as projectiles. We know that he can kick hard, but ultimately is a martial artist versus a robot with, like a Frankie times 10. You know what I'm saying? He's coming with laser beams. He's coming with grapplers and all kinds of crazy nonsense. It's an interesting fight in that respect. Whereas when we get to the other side and we look at King versus Zoro, we find out that King isn't even a martial artist. A Kenjutsu expert. He has a sword, true, but he's more or less a brawler. In that respect, to me, slightly, aside from strength level, you could kind of flip these opponents and it'll still work. For some reason, Zoro's skill set, to me, almost matches up better with Queen, whereas Sanji fighting a brute almost kind of makes sense. Because, aside from the sword thing, if swords go out of it, just dudes punching and kicking and whatever at each other. It's just an interesting thought that popped into my mind. Anyway, we find out that King, he's not even about necessarily Kenjutsu. He's just a fighter. And it's cool because he takes a swing at Zoro, then he pops out these brass knuckles, which at first you think landed, but Zoro pivots his head and blocks it with his sword. Cool. So and he makes the point, well, look, if you're just a brawler, then who knows, I might tear your throat out with my teeth. Whatever we got to do, I can't lose this fight. So that's set up. Then we get to the part that I'm not necessarily crazy about, where Kuguro and Kawamatsu are going on about how we know that Zoro is he is descendant of people from Wano. He's probably from Wano himself. And how he is basically displaying the image of, let me see, the past daimyo, who is Shimasuke Ushimaru, Shimasuke Ushimaru, the god of the, and I guess Ryuma was also a Shimatsuki. However the names line up. He's descendant of these people and even goes into Ryuma having one eye. So we have this whole, all right, yeah, Shimasuke Ushimaru, the daimyo of Ringo. And then you got Ryuma, who was also of that same lineage. Now, this lineage stuff is fine, I guess. But, this whole fate deal where people are, the will of fire or whatever you want to call it, people taking up other people's wills and completing their whatever. So that's not terribly interesting to me. The same with Luffy and all of them. I'm not a big fan of that stuff, but that's fine. I just want to hear the backstory of how Zoro came from Wano to the Windmill Village or wherever he wound up in the East Blue. Can we put that away? Interesting, but not terribly important to me at this point. It will be later, but fine. Now we get back to Jack the Jobber. I say Jack the Jobber, but he's not. I'm saying he's a jobber for real, but that's a wrestling term if you're down for wrestling. But he's going to take another L at this point to Inuarashi. I mean, it's just what it is. Inuarashi goes too long because there's one point. He's able to go so long because there's a hole in the roof, and it looks like that hole in the roof was caused when Zoro used his Ashura attack, because you see that little panel where it says Ashura and there's an explosion. So was that Ashura attack that Zoro used on Kaido that blew the hole in the roof? I might be reading that wrong, but whatever it says, yeah, there's a hole in the roof. If that's the case, fine, whatever. But that means Inuarashi can go Sulong, and his Sulong form was dope. So Jack's about to take another L. If he beats Inuarashi, that's going to be interesting because somebody's going to have to come and stop Jack. And I don't know who's in a position to do that. I would love for Jinbei to have put down Jack. But, that would line things up nice. Zoro takes out King, Queen takes out, Sanji takes out Queen, and then Jinbei takes out Jack. That'd be awesome. And, that's probably not going to happen, so whatever. But his Sulong form looks awesome. And the same can be said with Nekomamushi, because Nekomamushi, again, is going in on Perospero. I'm starting to feel bad for because he's catching it from what happened to Pedro. And, to my mind, what happened to Pedro really not really his problem. Not really his fault. Pedro took himself out, but whatever. For a good cause, but he took himself out. All right. So, and again, Nekomamushi's Sulong form is beast mode. It's awesome. Then we get the Fuguro Kuzu and Raizo, and that fight don't interest me whatsoever. I don't care. Somebody's going to win. I hope it's Raizo, but otherwise I don't care. Which brings us at last to, again, Spitting Image. To me, that also kind of fits. The title of the chapter kind of fits here because Momonosuke has been aged up to 28 years, which interestingly is the same age we find out as Yamato, whatever. They're going to be dual rulers in the end, but we'll get back to that, in my mind anyway. And the age in his human form, apparently, he's the spitting image of his father. And we only know that Shinobu makes the implied comment that he looks just like his father, Oden. But of greater importance is while all of the heart pirates are like, oh no, it's Kaido, what are we going to do? Luffy's standing there, he gets it. He's just standing there looking at him. And then he finally makes a comment, is that you, Momo? And he's like, yeah. So he's like, come on, let's go in, let's go back to Wano. So at this point, Luffy and Momonosuke are going to go back up. It's going to take a while because we got to basically. I'm assuming that they're going to have to go up there to save Yamato, and then the final battle will ensue between Luffy and Kaido. But we also got to get past Sanji and Zoro's fights with the two top, beast pirates, and that could take a minute. Now these things happening simultaneously. That's flexible, honestly. But it's a good end to this chapter. I'm not going to linger too much on this. It's an excellent chapter, another good build up to the final fight, and I'll have a review on 10/24 out. And I'm waiting for the official translation, so Sunday, some point late Sunday. No, because I gotta save that for Manga Monday. But I'll record it Sunday and then release it Monday this coming week. So again, excellent chapter. I had fun with it, fun reading it. I hope you did too. So until next time, stay loose.